They're on their way. Rick, Commissioner Baldwin.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. All right, good afternoon. I'm calling this meeting to order. I note that some of the participants are participating via video conference. Today's public meeting is also being live streamed from the Port Authority website. We will now hold the public meeting, starting with the Committee on Finance, which will be chaired by Commissioner LaBarbera, that'll be followed by a meeting of the Committee on Capital Planning, Execution, and Asset Management, which will be chaired by my Vice Chair, Jeff Linford. And we will conclude the public portion with a public board meeting. Let's start off with Commissioner LaBarbera.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Today's meeting of the Committee on Finance is being held in public session in its entirety. At this point, I ask Secretary to advise those present of the composition of the Committee on Finance and any Commissioner recusals on the matter before the committee at today's meeting.
Thank you. The committee is composed of Commissioner LaBarbera, the committee chair, Commissioner McCabe, the committee vice chair, and Commissioners Fine, Kelly, and Richardson. All committee members are present. Also present are Chairman O'Toole, Vice Chairman Linford, and Commissioner Bulwage, Eve, Fisher, and Rosado. Commissioners Richardson, Fine, and Rosado are remote today.
Thank you.
Oh, and there are no recusals required.
Thank you. I call on our Chief Financial Officer, Libby McCarthy, to present financial performances results for the first 9 months of 2024. Libby?
Thank you, Commissioner, and good afternoon. Today I'm happy to present our 9-month financial results. I'm going to be providing an overview of those results. I want to remind the board and the public that the condensed financial statements for the 9 months will be posted on the Port Authority's website after the conclusion of this meeting. Also, just in opening, just a reminder that this information is best understood when read in conjunction with the full financial statements, as is typical of quarterly financial information. And it is also, to the extent we have forward-looking information, there is the possibility that actual outcome may differ from the forward-looking information as a result of the timing of that. So moving forward, the 9-month financial results were quite strong. Net operating revenues totaled approximately $2.2 billion during the first 9 months of 2024, which was a $98 million or 5% increase over the same period in 2023, when looked at before the impact in both years of the actuarially determined non-cash fringe benefit adjustments related to our retiree pension and health care plans. When including this non-cash expense, net operating revenue for the first 9 months of the year totaled $2 billion, which is essentially flat when compared to the same period in the prior year. As compared to the 2024 budget for the first 9 months, net operating revenue was $29 million or 1% higher than planned. After factoring in other non-operating revenue items and the non-cash mark-to-market adjustment of our investment portfolio, net revenues available for debt service totaled nearly $2.8 billion for the period, which was slightly above last year's result. These results are driven by a number of different factors, which I'll discuss as we move through the presentation. This slide shows our activity at Aviation and Tunnels and Bridges. I'll just start with an overview of all 4 of the business units, but to orient you on this slide and the next page, the green line corresponds to the current year, current 9-month activity, and the yellow line corresponds to the 2023 results for the same period. Aviation on the left and TB&T on the right. The Port Authority's airports continued to experience record volumes in 2024. Total passenger volumes for the first 9 months of the year were 1.4% higher than our 2023 levels, as nearly 110 million passengers passed through the 3 major airports. As compared to the 2024 budget for the period, aviation activity was slightly lower than planned. Moving on to our bridges and tunnels, activity during the 9-month period was slightly under the 2023 level. And this was really attributed, we believe, to some shifts in the weather patterns. And I would point out that what we are seeing is year-over-year strong growth in our truck activity. It was up 2.2% compared to 2023, and trucks were up 5.4% compared to our budget. Again, while the overall traffic activity was right around plan and prior year, we are seeing strong growth in the truck activity. Moving on to our ports and the PATH system. Our ports continue to be amongst the busiest container ports in the nation. Volume in the first 9 months of this year finished 14% higher than the same period in 2023 and 9% higher than budget. We do estimate that about 2% of that growth, or the budget grew by, or the activity grew by approximately 2% as a result of the diversion of cargo activity from the Port of Baltimore during the second quarter of the year, which is indicated by the green dotted line on the chart. Lastly, the PATH system, like other mass transit commuter systems in the region, continues to have a slower recovery of ridership since the onset of COVID-19. While PATH ridership for the first 9 months was 13% higher than the same period in 2023, ridership remains about, over the 9 months, 68% of pre-COVID 2019 activity levels, as indicated by the light blue line on this chart. I will note, however, that PATH ridership in the month of September of this year was 74% of 2019 levels, which is a dramatic uptick for the month. PATH ridership, though, and so we're seeing in that after the summer vacations a very significant increase in the PATH ridership. For the first 9 months, however, of 2024, we are currently about 1% lower than budget in terms of PATH ridership. So now looking at our revenues, this slide shows the breakdown of our gross operating revenues by our various categories. Gross operating revenues for the 9-month period totaled $5.2 billion, which is an increase of $323 million or 7% year over year. As compared to the 2024 budget, gross operating revenues for the first 9 months were $131 million or nearly 3% higher than planned. The chart depicts the components, as I said, of the various pieces of our operating growth, and the strong year-over-year performance is primarily driven by our higher rental income and aviation cost recovery revenues. Rental revenues of $1.8 billion or $146 million or 9% higher year over year, and they are primarily driven by increased activities at our airports and our marine ports, as well as new rents associated with the various airport redevelopment projects at Newark and JFK Airport. Aviation fees of nearly $1.3 billion are 11% higher than the same period in 2023. These fees primarily consist of cost recovery revenues. The large year-over-year increase is primarily a result of a new airline cost recovery agreement that went into effect in January of this year. For the 9-month period, revenues are $131 million or 3% higher than planned. Moving on to operating expenses. When excluding that non-cash fringe benefit adjustment that I spoke about, the first 9 months of 2024 totaled approximately $3 billion, representing an increase of $225 million or 8% year over year. Most of this spending supports higher activity volumes across all of our facilities related to new or expanded facilities, heightened physical and cybersecurity measures in response to the current threat environment, and increased construction support activities. For the 9 months of this year, operating expenses are $102 million, or 4% higher than planned due to those similar factors. Now looking at our cash flow and liquidity. Cash from operations for the first 9 months of '24 was $2.4 billion, which reflects a $182 million or 8% increase as compared to the same period. And this is really driven by those increased revenues that we talked about that are improving our cash flows. Cash and investments as of September 30th totaled $6.2 billion, which is approximately $800 million higher than year-end of 2023, again, driven by the higher cash flow from operations, as well as contributions in aid of construction related to JFK Airport redevelopment projects. In addition to cash and investments, as of September 30th of this year, the Port Authority had approximately $358 million of capital to support capital capacity to support its capital construction program, consisting of capital funds and available bank revolver capacity. And when excluding the General Reserve Fund and Capital Fund, cash and investments on hand at September 30th represented 339 days of cash on hand. And finally, looking at our bonds and other obligations, as of September 30th, they totaled $28.2 billion. And this is the net effect of issuance of new money and refundings, new money to support our capital program and refundings. You can see that we were pretty much flat to where we ended 2023. We were most recently in the market in late September with a $1.1 billion offering that allowed us to raise more than $335 million of new money proceeds to support our capital program. We also refunded approximately $850 million of prior debt at lower interest rates, resulting in approximately $85 million of present value savings. That concludes my remarks, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Libby. Do any commissioners have comments or questions regarding the report? Okay, hearing none, this concludes today's meeting on the Committee on Finance. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner LaBarbera. This next stage, we're going to call the meeting on the Committee on Capital Planning, Execution, and Asset Management, which will be chaired by Vice Chair Jeff Linford. Vice Chair?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Today's meeting of the Committee on Planning, Execution, and Asset Management is being held, wrong one. Is that an executive session?
No.
Okay, at least I caught it. As chairman of the Committee on Capital Planning, Execution, and Asset Management, I will now report on an item under the committee's purview. This item was presented by our Director of Aviation Redevelopment in public session of the committee earlier today. This item authorized an additional planning in the amount of $35 million in support of the development No problem. Thank you. Try one more time. Third time's charm. Today's meeting of the Committee on Capital Planning, Execution, and Asset Management is being held in public session. The committee also met in executive session earlier today to discuss matters involving ongoing negotiations or reviews of contracts and proposals. At this point, I will ask the Secretary to advise those present of the composition of the committee and any commissioner recusals on the item before the committee. For our first order of business,
Sorry, Vice Chairman. The committee is composed of Vice Chairman Linford, the committee chair, Chairman O'Toole, the committee vice chair, and Commissioners LaBarbera and Rosado. Also present are Commissioners Bollwage, Eve, Fine, Fisher, Kelly, McCabe, and Richardson. There are no recusals required.
thank you. For our first order of business, I call on our Director of Aviation Redevelopment, Jackie McCarthy, to present an item that would authorize additional planning for the redevelopment of Newark Liberty International Airport's Terminal B. Jackie.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Executive Director Cotton, Mr. Chairman, and members of the board. I'm here today to request funds for the planning authorization for a new Terminal B at Newark Liberty International Airport. The objectives of the planning authorization stem from the near-term recommendations outlined in the recently released and completed visioning plan and will include a replacement of Terminal B as well as necessary supporting infrastructure for airside, landside, and utility. The planning exercise will address providing capacity for long-term passenger demand, reducing delays and increasing operational efficiency and resiliency, enabling access, business, and employment opportunities to the local community, and focusing on sustainability in every element to establish Newark Airport as a sustainable leader in the industry. Some background on previous efforts. In October of 2019, the board authorized $35 million for the development of the Newark Vision Plan and planning for a new Terminal B. There was a delay in the release of the Vision Plan initially, and in August of 2022, the Vision Plan process continued and was launched following this COVID pause. In October of 24, the Port Authority publicly announced the release of the Vision Plan via press release and press conference last week. And now, a new Terminal B program planning is planned to follow the recent release of the Vision Plan. Currently, there are $20 million in funds available remaining from the previously authorized $35 million. The scope included in this effort contains Terminal B program planning, which will include the concept design for the new terminal, roadways and airside functional plans, a value engineering effort, and the development of procurement and financing plans, infrastructure planning and design, including the replacement of the central heating and refrigeration plant, which provides chilled and hot water for our terminals for heating and cooling, as well as supporting infrastructure, and infrastructure renewal for electrical, water, gas, drainage, and fuel. Additionally, we'll be performing an environmental analysis of the development as a whole. The program planning budget is anticipated to be $55 million, which means $35 million being requested of additional planning for a new Terminal B at Newark Airport, resulting in a total planning of the 55. This is expected to be approximately a 2-year effort. So today I'm requesting that the board authorize $35 million for additional funds to support preliminary planning and design for a new Terminal B at Newark, which, including previously authorized funds, would total $55 million for the planning effort. And also that the board authorize the executive director to award planning and other professional, technical, and advisory service agreements to support these planning efforts pursuant to a publicly advertised competitive procurement, and authorize the executive director to submit an application for up to $35 million in passenger facility charges to recover eligible expenditures associated with the foregoing additional $35 million in planning efforts. Thank you.
Thank you. May I please have a motion?
So moved. So moved.
Thank you. May I have a second? Second. Thank you. Hearing none, the motion is passed. Next, I call on our Chief Development Officer, Derek Utter, to present the quarterly capital performance results for the first 9 months of 2024. Derek.
Great, thank you, Vice Chairman. Good afternoon, Commissioners. So I'm here to report today on the first 9 months capital plan results. Just quickly, the headlines. We have spent $1.8 billion in the first 9 months. This is up about $300 million from the first 9 months in 2023, so for the same period of time. Our overall spending is about 80% of the plan that we laid out at the beginning of the year, and I'll go into some of the details in a moment. And we hit 90% of our planned schedule milestones on target or ahead of target. So looking at the broader history here, the last few years we have typically spent below our total amount in our plan. In fact, the last 2 years below 80%. This year we're trending to about 80% of our plan. The underspending is largely divided amongst 3 major projects: the Midtown Bus Terminal replacement, the AirTrain Newark replacement, and the JFK Roads, Utilities, and Ground Transportation Center, although I will point out that we expect the JFK spending to catch up by the end of the year and not to be a real reason for underspending during the course of the entire year. The other 2 projects are projects that are in the pre-construction phase, and when we move into construction, we tend to spend a lot more, and we had estimated that we might move into construction. We had budgeted to allow ourselves to move into construction as quickly as possible so that the budget, at least to start these first phases, was not the constraint. In terms of our schedule milestones, we had 72 planned schedule milestones in the first 9 months of the year. These are the completion of the pre-construction phase when we award a contract, and then secondly, when we complete construction for a project. So every project has 2 milestones. We have a lot of smaller projects, and we track these to make sure that we're being aggressive and staying on top of all of the projects in our plan. So we hit 90%. This is our goal, to hit at least 90%, and we had a lower year last year. We put in place a number of measures to stay on top of some of the reasons for those delays, and this year we're trending back to where we'd like to be. In terms of projects, specific projects, we had several notable contract awards. The JFK construction of South Hardstand areas. The importance of that is that's the last major piece to award amongst the JFK redevelopment projects the Port Authority is leading on the infrastructure side. So the other big one last year was the Roads, Utilities, and Ground Transportation Center. That's really the redo of the road network. This is the last major piece. So now our projects have been contracted, and now construction will continue underway. Amongst projects put into beneficial use, we completed the path rehabilitation of mechanical systems and controls at the Hackensack River Bridge. This is an important project so that we make sure that the bridge controls and the bridge works correctly. We also completed 2 path restoration projects, one at the Grove Street station and the other at the Exchange Place station. As well as the Port Newark, we completed priority rehabs of 6 berths. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Derek. Do any commissioners have comments or questions regarding this report? Hearing none, this concludes today's meeting of the Committee on Planning, Execution, and Asset Management. Turn it back to our chairman.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Moving ahead, the board meeting of the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey and its component units is now being called to order. On October 16th, the Committees on Finance and Operations met jointly in executive session. Earlier today, the Committees on Finance met in public session, and the Committee on Capital Planning, Execution, and Asset Management met in public and executive session. The reports will be filed with the official minutes of today's board meeting. The Commissioners also met in executive session earlier today, to discuss matters related to the purchase, sale, or lease of real property where disclosure would affect the value thereof or the public interest, matters related to the personnel and personnel procedures, and matters involving ongoing negotiations or reviews of contracts or proposals, and to discuss and act upon matters related to security or public safety. We begin today's public meeting by, on a somber note, we have recently lost 2 of our family members in the Port Authority family. We lost Jack Brewster, who passed away at the end of September. Jack served as a dedicated administrator for the Port Authority Employment Relations Panel for over 16 years. He played an integral role in the relationship between agency management and the collective bargaining agreements that represent thousands of Port Authority employees. Jack was known for his kindness, his resourcefulness, and his passion for his work, and he'll be sorely missed by us and by his coworkers and his family. We also note, sadly, that we lost Michael DiGiovanni, an assistant signal repairman in the Path Power Signals and Communication Division. Michael was literally 1 month shy of his 13-year anniversary with the agency. He'll be remembered for his humor, laughter, and he brought during his break times. And he was also he was known for making sure that everybody around him was in a safe environment. and he was going to be missed by his colleagues. And I ask everyone to stand for a moment of silence for Jack and Michael. Thank you. And before we go on to the pressing agenda for today, I think it's important, I think the board, Rick Cotton, the executive director, think it's important that we take time to recognize those in our Port Authority family who go above and beyond. We have 3 police officers here who had gone through a very terrifying incident on George Washington, which we're going to hear from shortly. I think it's important when we have these moments when these officers and the men and women who protect us go above and beyond, that we say thank you, we recognize them, praise them for their bravery, wish you well in your recovery, and let you know that we appreciate everything you've done. So we've asked them to come here today. The 3 patrolmen, if the superintendent, Ed Setnar, can come up and talk about the actual horror that unfolded on George Washington, and we're going to get up, and I think all the commissioners and the executive director will come up and congratulate them and present them with a certification. Ed?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Director, Commissioners. As you said, this incident could have been a whole lot worse, and we'd be telling a different story right now if it was not for the training and dedication that these 3 officers completed that day. Police Officer Michael Carrera, Police Officer Vincent LeConte, and Police Officer Joseph Romano. Please stand, guys. On October 13th of 2024, just before 3 a.m. in the morning, there was an armed carjacking that happened in South Hackensack Township in New Jersey. A short time later, the vehicle that was carjacked found its way to the George Washington Bridge and became disabled, with numerous reports and calls coming in that the car was driving on 3 wheels. At one point, the vehicle ended up stopping, whether it became disabled or the person inside the vehicle decided that it was no longer being able to operate or make their way through the traffic. At that point, Police Officer Joe Romano was dispatched for the disabled vehicle, unknowingly aware of what was going to transpire seconds later. This happened on the upper level of the New Jersey side. As I said, the vehicle was being operated on 3 wheels at the time. As Police Officer Romano pulled up to the scene, the vehicle's operated, quickly exited the stolen vehicle and ran over the carjacked vehicle and started pounding on the police officer's vehicle. As Police Officer Romano started to exit, Police Officer Carrera arrived on the scene to assist him. As they attempted to encounter the subject ran around to the passenger side door of our patrol car, dove into our patrol car, and attempted to steal our patrol car, which would have been a further escalation of potential violence or safety to the people traversing across the bridge. At that time, without hesitation, Police Officer Carrera dove through the driver's side window of the patrol car, and as you see, he's not a small person. He told me on the phone he didn't know how he fit through the window.
Is that a nice thing to say?
I'm just telling you what he repeated to me, Chairman. But with his quick instinct and his quick, bold actions as diving through, trying to mitigate the problem and wrestle with this person. What was unknown at the time that the subject was armed with a knife, and he attempted to stab our officer numerous times, and he did cause lacerations on his face, on his cheek, underneath his nose, and nearly penetrated his eyeball. For the luck of our officers, God was with them that day, and the other 2 officers quickly jumped in the side of the patrol car, assisted Police Officer Correa in apprehending the subject, arresting him, and then bringing him into our offices for processing. Bergen County prosecutor, along with our detectives, filed the charges, and they were filed with attempted murder, first degree attempted armed robbery, first degree carjacking, second degree attempted carjacking, second degree possession of a weapon, third degree aggravated assault, third degree receiving stolen property to motor vehicle, third degree resisting arrest, possession of a weapon, and drug paraphernalia. As I said, our goal is to get our men and women home each and every day. If it was not for the quick actions of these officers and able to subdue the subject, they were able to apprehend him, received injuries in it, and we know they're not serious, but they could have been a whole lot worse. And I thank the board for recognizing our officers because this is the things that go on each and every day, unfortunately, in society. So congratulations to them, and again, thank you to the board.
Superintendent, I spoke to them the next day, and you could just hear it in their voices. They were a little shocked. They're obviously proud. And, you know, one of them said, I just thought I was going to die for that moment. When you hear those words as a commissioner, like, they're laying it on the line every single day. And I know the assailant tried to steal another car and carjack another car, and who knows where that would have gone, but for these three. So the officers, we brought you here because we want to thank you in person and want to recognize your bravery and your courage. And we're going to get up and give a presentation. But more importantly, we want to just let you know we got your back. We thank you for everything you do. Appreciate it.
Officers want to face where we'll just do a quick presentation. Scatter these three. The folks come on this way, but they're this way. A little more towards the center. A little more towards the center. All right. Perfect. 3, 2, 1. Thank you. Thanks, folks. Appreciate it.
At this time, we recognize our Executive Director, Rick Cotton, to provide his report. Rick?
Very much, Mr. Chairman. I also want to start out my report taking note of the bravery of the three officers who we just applauded and who we honored a few moments ago, and to thank them and their brave colleagues across the Port Authority Police Department for their service. And while I'm in the business of thank yous, I also want to extend my thank you, as I try to do each month, to all of the employees and staff of the Port Authority. It is their dedication and their commitment to discharge their duties that allows the agency to provide the services that it does. And also, we continue to be thankful. 2/3 of our employees are represented. And we continue to be grateful to the leaders of those unions for their partnership and hard work as we move the agency's agenda along. With respect to my report itself, I want to start with some exciting news hot off the presses as of 48 hours ago. I'm pleased, in fact, I'd say I'm delighted to report that the Forbes Travel Guide, based on a survey of 5,000 travel experts and seasoned travelers who they selected as part of their survey, has awarded LaGuardia the Forbes 2024 Airport Award as the best airport in the United States of America. So in the past, LaGuardia has been routinely in what is now becoming the distant past, but came in last in any and every passenger rating or survey. So the words cellar dweller, laughing stock, worst in class were frequently applied to LaGuardia. I'm happy to say I think we've now made the the transition. The Forbes Travel Guide Award as the best airport in the U.S. is really extremely gratifying. And this news matches up with the quality of the new Terminal A at Newark Liberty Airport and with the release of our vision plan for the future of Newark Liberty. These together provide recognition and ratification of our efforts on both sides of the river to set absolutely the highest standard possible in terms of the transformation of all of our Port Authority airports. Now I want to report to the board on the performance of our facilities during September of 2024. I'll start with the airports. This month, our three large airports continue to set new records with respect to passenger volumes. Overall, the three major airports set a collective record for the month of September, with a total of nearly 12 million passengers passing through them, and that's approximately 77,000 passengers above the previous record set last September. With respect to the individual airports, JFK and LaGuardia set new monthly records for total passengers, and Newark set a monthly record with respect to the volume of international passengers. Now, with respect to PATH really showed significant forward movement in September. PATH's ridership jumped significantly. Our CFO took note that volumes this month were the highest levels that we have seen since the onset of the pandemic. PATH ridership increased by 6 full percentage points to 74% of pre-COVID levels. Prior to September, PATH ridership had been stuck at about 66% for the past several months. Interestingly, the weekend ridership continues to be extremely strong, with both Saturday and Sunday ridership now having recovered their 2019 levels. At the Seaport turned in another very strong monthly performance with more than 25% higher cargo levels than September of 2019, and year-to-date, the Seaport is the second busiest in the country based on loaded containers. Finally, our 4 bridges and 2 tunnels continue to show strong volumes exceeding September of 2019. Brief update on the Midtown Bus Terminal replacement, which we continue to press forward with really unprecedented speed in terms of getting through what are elaborate gates in the pre-construction permitting. Our $10 billion replacement project took a very important step forward in the local New York City permitting process when the City Planning Commission voted unanimously to approve the application at their public hearing last week. The ULURC application now moves to the City Council for consideration before advancing to the mayor for the final approval. A word about JFK Terminal 8. We made a very gratifying and important announcement earlier this month in partnership with American Airlines and Unibail URW Airports. What they announced at Terminal 8 was a $125 million commercial redevelopment program. As part of this program, 21 new dining, retail, and entertainment brands, including 13 local and diverse businesses, will be featured in the newly expanded terminal. Our emphasis on locally owned and diverse businesses is a key part of our airport redevelopment programs. A brief further note on the Seaport. As most know, Commissioners, on Tuesday, October 1st, the ILA went on strike at port facilities across the East and Gulf coasts. The strike ended after 3 days when a tentative agreement on wages was reached on October 3rd. Now, during this 3-day secession, a backlog of 35 ships built up in our harbor or just outside our harbor. Vessel operations at our terminals resumed on Friday following the resolution of the wage issue with the ILA and the terminal operators and carriers. The backlog of ships at that point was 35 ships, either at anchor in our harbor or slow steaming just outside our harbor. We are thankful for the fact that all of our employees and our port partners working together cleared that entire backlog of ships by Tuesday, October 15th. We thank them for their efforts across the board. Now, there are three of our standards which I think we talk about, we don't talk about enough, but I just want to tick off in the area of sustainability, in the area of technology and innovation, and in the area of diversity and inclusion. Just several examples which happen to coincide during this past month. With respect to sustainability and a new solar array at JFK, New Terminal 1. During Climate Week this past month, the Port Authority and the New Terminal 1 Consortium announced that construction has begun on the largest solar array in New York City. The array, which will also be the largest at any airport terminal in the country, will consist of approximately 13,000 solar panels atop New Terminal 1's roof. This solar array will generate 6.6 megawatts of electricity for the airport and is part of a broader 12-megawatt microgrid that will distribute electric energy from solar, fuel cells, and batteries through a localized and self-contained energy system. This clean technology provides resilience for the terminal and its passengers while advancing the agency's aggressive sustainability goals to reach net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. On the technology and innovation front, this past Saturday, the Port Authority conducted a pilot involving our innovation hub, which is completely devoted to sustaining and fostering innovation within the Port Authority. Worked with Delta Airlines to test out a specialized so-called taxi bot, TUG. This technology will allow airplanes to be towed from the gate to the runway without having to start up their engines until they reach the actual runway. If used at scale, this new TUG technology has the potential to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from airplanes dramatically while they are on the ground. On Saturday, October 19th, the demonstration involved the movement of a 747 airplane between Hangar 19 and Hangar 12 at JFK Airport. The point of the pilot was to demonstrate the ability to safely operate the TUG and to meet any and all safety requirements that would have to be issued by the FAA as a key partner in assessing and permitting this technology. We are committed across the board to be leaders in innovation and to adopt cutting-edge technology wherever we can, and certainly cutting-edge technology that aids our sustainability objective. Finally, with respect to diversity and inclusion, on September 19th, the Conference of Minority Transportation Officials hosted a special New York gala and recognized the Port Authority for the agency's work in promoting inclusivity and advancing equity in the transportation sector. COMTO has been a steadfast partner in our commitment to support and grow minority-owned businesses and to provide opportunities and tangible economic benefits to the communities neighboring our facilities. We are delighted that an organization of COMTO's standing has recognized our efforts. Mr. Chairman, with that, I conclude my report.
Thank you, Mr. Executive Director. A lot going on. Your issue about the port strike, and we talked about an executive, I just think that we, the board, don't do enough to cite the extraordinary contributions of our employees. Beth Ann Rooney, in particular, was the head of the coordination, working with Greg Erie and working with Ed, working with the executive director, working with maintenance to make sure that the striking workers were going to be safe, they're going to be respected, they're going to be in a place where there wasn't going to cause any chaos and safety issues. And that was a tense few days, but I really think we got to congratulate Beth, her leadership, Amy Fisher, and those folks that made this whole thing possible without any real confrontation that we've seen in the past during these difficult times. So hats off to those folks. Really appreciate the effort, and we got through a very difficult place, and we came out and there was a reflection on what we contributed as the Port Authority, and it was meaningful. And I'm glad the strike was resolved. Ships are back in activity. Everyone's working, and there's harmony back in the back in the ports as well. We'll now provide an opportunity for members of the public to comment on Port Authority matters. The public comment period, which may be limited for 30 minutes, provides an opportunity for members of the public to present their views directly to the board, but does not provide for a dialogue. Members of the public wishing to discuss a specific issue should reach out to our staff, and they'll contact Public Affairs, and we will have someone get back to them immediately. Speakers are asked to comply with the fixed time of about 3 minutes. We have 9 speakers. First of all, I want to confirm, are there any written or video statements?
There are none.
Great. Jason Anthony, first one. Welcome, Jason.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Jason Anthony here from the Long Island Railroad ADA Task Force. This month, I brought you guys some wonderful evidence from it should be called the Lincoln Tunnel Bus Terminal. Some pictures that I took yesterday from the terminal, which it shows the lack thereof improvements that should be done. For example, signages that confuses people when the escalator that goes from the second to the first floor, like this one right here, during the rush hour, especially during the PM rush, the escalator goes up only. And the weekends is completely shut. This sign right here, it says certain rules inside the terminal. But yours truly saw this. A person riding a electric scooter inside the terminal in the second floor. No police present. An escalator in the south wing, non-functional. A confused signage near the PNC Bank. A homeless person inside the terminal. Regarding accessibility, it is totally disgraceful as a New Yorker that was born and raised that we don't see projects regarding accessibility. I wonder if you guys in this room, especially the board members, and your chief development officer knows a person named Edith Prentice. Because it is so unfortunate that you guys care more about New Jersey than New York. Especially, right, board member Kelly? Because guess what? Newsflash. Kathleen Hochul Courtney is about to give us congestion pricing.
Thank you, Jason. Can you hand those pictures to the officer and she'll hand them to the clerk? Thank you very much. Next speaker is Craig Singleton. Craig Singleton, thank you. Craig Singleton's the next one listed, I'm sorry.
Okay.
You're about 4 away, Chris.
Okay.
All right.
Good morning, Commissioners. How you doing?
How you doing?
My name is Craig Singleton. I'm a warehouse worker at EWR Newark Airport. I'm also a father of 4 children, grandfather of 11. My grandkids age range from 4 to 23. I have worked at Newark Airport over 25 years. and have seen the progression of Newark Airport from People Express to what we have now. I remember a time when my wages were so low, but throughout the years, they have, steadily increased. But due to COVID pandemic, the wages have stayed kind of stagnant for the time being. Getting the $25 an hour would be a blessing to me. I have worked 2 jobs for the past 23 years. I work at Newark Airport from 1 o'clock in the afternoon to 7:30 at night. Then I work at night from 10:30 to 7 in the morning. I have worked 2 jobs for the past 22 years. Yeah, and getting the raise would cut back on me working so many, hours and everything, spend more time with my grandkids. Because as anybody here that's a grandparent know, grandkids trump children.
Everybody says that.
Yeah. I took 5 of my grandkids to Comic-Con Sunday. While they was enjoying themselves, I was walking around like a deadhead. I was tired. Jacob Jefferson, as everybody know, is very, very big. So, a couple of times I had to do the bill shuffle. The bill shuffle is pay the one that's about to be due, let the other ones linger for a minute, and then they become the extremely one later on. I know Port Authority can be taking the action to increase the airport workers' wages. We just asked for the same leadership as before, years before. We just need to take the action now so that the airport, workers could just stop doing the bill shuffle as I do. Lastly, I would like to share a tagline that I made up myself. EWR is everybody needs respect. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. Appreciate it. Jesus Lemmel? Jesus Lemmel? No? No Jesus Lemmel? Okay. Vladimir Claire June?
Afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you for letting me speak here today. All right, good afternoon. My name is Vladimir Clay June. I'm a wheelchair agent at JFK. I'm also a father of 6. I've got a 15-year-old, a 14-year-old, 2 12-year-old twin boys, a 10-year-old, and a 3-week-old. I love my children. Everything I do is to make our lives better, their lives better. And as a wheelchair agent, I make sure the passengers get from their planes to their loved ones. On any given day, you never know how many wheelchairs you're going to get. Sometimes there'll be 10 of us pushing 40 wheelchairs at a time. But we make it happen. Because without us, the passengers don't move. And neither does the airport. We make it happen day in and day out without any hiccups. I've worked at JFK for 17 years, and I'm thankful to have the wage increases that we've gotten over the last couple of years. But then the pandemic hit and inflation hit, so now our wages don't go as far anymore. I understand that JFK has had a record number of visitors, and that means our work has increased and our work has become even more essential. At the same time, investments are being made to upgrade our airports. We should look into that. All over JFK, you see the signs highlighting the $19 billion investment into the new terminal, and it's great. But we need to invest. We need investment into our airports, but we also need to make investment in the folks that help the airport run. We can't just have shiny new terminals without investing in the workers. And if we want a world-class experience for our passengers, airport workers also need to have higher wages. Higher wages would allow workers like myself to keep up with the cost of living and stay in our jobs long term. If I got the raise to $25 an hour, it would allow me to keep up with my bills. I wouldn't have to rely on my credit cards to take care of daily living expenses for myself and my children's school expenses. And and I wouldn't have to relive the times when I've only been able to cover my rent with it and have a few dollars left. I recently got a car to be able to get to work a lot more easily and to get my children from one place to another, but that comes with additional expenses, car payment, insurance, and gas. I'd love to be able to take my kids on a family vacation. I think that'd be fair for airport workers to be able to travel the same airports that we service. And I have to tell you that it really sucks to be on vacation and not be able to afford to take that vacation. We appreciate the investments you're making, and then we ask that you invest in us, the airport workers, and do it soon because we can't wait much longer.
Thank you very much, Walter. Great. Christopher. Welcome back, Christopher.
Thank you. As you know, I have to sometimes attend my other meetings the same times as your meetings. It's Transit Riders Council. That's why there are times you'll see Jason Anthony or Debbie, aka my mother, or Ann. Fortunately, Ann is not here. She'll be feeling better and resting. As I'm going to say, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Christopher D. Greif. As an advocate for disability, member of Transit Riders Council, ACTA, and the Railroad Accessibility member. I also want to be very clear. As I'm hearing a lot of the projects and things that we've been doing, and I've been seeing, and this gentleman who was just here mentioning, accessibility is the key we need to hear. And a lot of the projects I love to hear, and I'm glad we're doing the airports, but there's one thing I don't hear in our capital projects: accessibility. What are we going to do for the ramps, braille, lighting, elevators, anything with LD lighting? I have here from other transportation other divisions mentioning accessibility. It could be seniors and people with disabilities. I want to see more about when projects comes in. I'm glad I'm seeing it, but I'd like to see more. I'd like to see accessibility for reduced fare prices for disabilities, our veterans who can't get on the air train, who can't get on the PATH trains because they can't get on. But a senior can, thank God. My mother can get on, my cousin Ann can get on, but I can't, or any other veterans. There was supposed to be promised a meeting, and I've been waiting patiently and always respectful, but I'm just asking, can we please have a meeting to work some ideas as we're in the 21st century to get more accessibility? As I'm wearing this Omni shirt, and it does represent the subways and yes, the air train, we need to make sure reduced fare does come into this. The budget is important, accessibility is important, seniors and people with disabilities need to use the transit system. They want to go to the mall across the Hudson, they want to go to Newark to maybe switch to other trains, and let's also remember, 14th Street is going to be fully accessible. Let's work with the MTA as well as 23rd Street and 6th Avenue to get combined and accessible stations on the path. We need to make sure we get those done. And accessibility is an important thing to do. As I've been doing this for now almost 31 years, I want to see more accessibility. As Jason mentioned earlier, Edith Prentice was an advocate for also transportation. She passed away 3 years ago. I have made this promise to keep continuing fighting for accessibilities. There is a video on her on street naming. She fought the 175th Street station on the A that has a plaque. Right now it's being renovated, thank God. But we still need to continue working on accessibility. So I'm asking Port Authority to please work with us together as one. Thank you.
Christopher, thank you. Hope your mom and Ann are doing okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Brandon Burstein. Brandon, come on up. And the last one is Malachi Glass after that. Brandon, welcome.
Well, thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Brandon Burston. I've worked in sanitation and utilities for OTG at LaGuardia Airport for 8 years. I am also a member of Unite Here Local 100, and I lived in Queens, New York. Airport workers like myself work incredibly hard, and I worked full-time and long hours. But it is very expensive to live in New York area. I am paying right now $1,000, and my fiance, who works as a home care attendant, is paying also the same amount, $1,000. And it takes both of our paychecks to pay the rent and other bills. I have Medicaid for health care, and if I didn't have that, low-cost healthcare, I wouldn't go out with other necessities. An increase in the minimum wage would mean that I don't have to worry about having enough money to pay the electric bill or grocery bill. And an increase in minimum wage would mean that I might have something extra at the end of the month so that I could save and invest in my future. Airport workers need the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey to do three things. First, we need a minimum wage of $25 for all airport and airline catering workers. Second, we need to guarantee a parity in health insurance, vacation, and holiday standards for New York and New Jersey. Airport workers in New York should not be left behind in New Jersey. And third, we need to make sure that these benefits include concession workers like myself at LaGuardia and JFK airports, and we have excluded for no good reason. These actions by the Port Authority would improve lives of so many other hardworking airport workers. Thank you for listening, Alex.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Malachi Glass, Malachi, if I got that right? Malachi, sorry about that.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Malachi Glass. I'm a member of Unite Local 100. I work at JFK Airport as a non-tip server in the Centurion Lounge operated by Sodexo. I've been working at the Centurion Lounge for a little over a year now, and since I've started working at 18, I've bounced around to different jobs to find better pay. I've also had to move a lot to find an affordable rent for myself. Today I live in Queens and pay $1,200 a month for a studio apartment that barely fits my mattress and a dresser for myself. I have many years of working ahead of me, and I like working at the airport, and I'd like to make a career out of it and develop my skills and further myself in the airport. Business is consistent at the airport, and we work hard to provide a good service for airport passengers, and in return, airport jobs need to provide consistency for us. So we have not just a job, but a career. The airport never stops, so we need more pay. We need more paid time off when we need to rest or when we get sick. Here's what we're asking for from the Port Authority: a raise of the minimum wage for all airport workers to a family-sustaining wage of $25 an hour, and extended to the Port Authority's Health Terminals Act to include concession workers, as myself, at the New York airports, and a guaranteed parity in health insurance, vacation, and holiday standards between New York and New Jersey. Airport workers at JFK and LaGuardia deserve the same pay as airport workers in New York. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Malachi. Our last speaker, Lenore Jesus. Lenore Jesus, the translator. Great. Thank you.
Buenas tardes. Así. Buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Leonor Jesús.
My name is Leonor Jesús.
Tengo 24 años trabajando en el aeropuerto John F. Kennedy como limpiadora. A través de estos 24 años, he visto la modernización del aeropuerto, cómo ha cambiado de un edificio viejo a un edificio lujoso. Han invertido millones en dólares en renovación y modernización del aeropuerto, pero mi salario me pone debajo de la clase media. Y para mí es difícil pagar mi recibo y poner comida en la mesa.
I have been working as a cleaner at JFK for 24 years. Over those 24 years, I have seen the modernization of the airport, how it has changed from an old building to a luxurious building. Billions of dollars have been invested in renovations and modernization of the airport, but my salary still puts me below the middle class. And for me, it is difficult to pay my bills and put food on the table.
$19 por hora no es suficiente porque el consumo diario ha subido demasiado precio. Empezando con mi renta, la cual ha subido desde 600 al mes a 1,300 al mes. He tenido un aumento en el costo del tren.
$19 an hour is not sufficient because the daily cost of living has increased dramatically. starting with my rent, which has increased from $600 a month to $1,300 a month, and I am paying more to take the train to work.
Cada mes tengo que obtener dos tarjetas, una del tren regular y otra por el tren. Cuando voy al supermercado, llevo cupones en la mano para así extender más el dinero. Cuando veo un descuento de $2 o $3, mi corazón palpita de felicidad porque hace una diferencia para mí.
Every month, I have to buy 2 train cards, one for the subway at a cost of $132 and another for the air train for $42. When I go to the supermarket, I take coupons with me to be able to make my money stretch further. When I see a discount of $2 or $3, I am happy because it makes a big difference for me.
También tengo que pagar el recibo de luz, el teléfono, entre otros. A fin de mes, tengo que decidir cuál recibo voy a pagar primero. Y no me queda dinero para mi cuidado personal.
I also have to pay my light bill and my phone bill, among others. At the end of the month, I have to decide which bill I am going to pay first, and that leaves me with no money for my personal care.
En total, mis gastos para una vida básica son demasiado altos. Por esa razón necesitamos el aumento salarial urgente. Un aumento salarial a 25 por hora me facilitaría estabilidad económica y emocional.
In total, my expenses for a basic life are just too high. For these reasons, I need a raise urgently. A raise to $25 an hour would allow me to be financially and emotionally stable.
Gracias.
Thank you very much. Thank you. All righty, Jim, that's all the speakers? Great, thank you very much. Move ahead. We're now going to proceed with the votes on the items for the board's consideration. As Chair of the Committee on Operations, I'll now present 2 items. The first item authorizes 2 7-year leases with British Airways and Air France for Terminal B lounges at Newark Liberty International, which were a result of a competitive solicitation process. As part of the new leases, British Airways and Air France will invest a combined minimum of $11.5 million to refurbish and expand the passenger lounge. Prior to making a motion, are there any recusals? Any questions?
There are none.
Or comments from the commissioners? Motion, please.
So moved.
Second. Roll call.
Chairman O'Toole?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Linford?
Yes.
Commissioner Bollwage?
Yes.
Commissioner Eve?
Yes.
Commissioner Fine?
Yes.
Commissioner Fisher?
Yes.
Commissioner Kelly?
Yes.
Commissioner McCabe?
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson?
Yes.
Commissioner Rosado?
Yes.
Commissioner LaBarbera is a yes. The votes are in order. This item's been approved. The next item authorizes a negotiated 7-year lease with L.A. Campania for a lounge at Terminal B at Newark Liberty Airport. As part of the new lease, they will invest a minimum of $1.9 million to renovate and enhance the passenger lounge. Prior to making a motion, I ask if there's any recusals.
There are none.
Any questions or comments from the commissioners? Motion.
So moved.
Second. Second. Roll call.
Chairman O'Toole?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Linford?
Yes.
Commissioner Bollwage?
Yes.
Commissioner Eve?
Yes.
Commissioner Fine?
Yes.
Commissioner Fisher?
Yes.
Commissioner Kelly?
Yes.
Commissioner McCabe?
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson?
Yes.
Commissioner Rosado?
Yes.
Commissioner LaBarbera is a yes. Carries. They're in order. Item's been approved. Vice Chair, as the Chair of Committee on Capital and Execution, will now provide his report before presenting items for consideration.
Thank you. I will now report on an item under the committee's purview. This item, which was presented by our Director of Aviation Redevelopment in public session earlier today, authorizes additional planning in the amount of $35 million in support of the redevelopment of Terminal B at Newark Liberty International Airport for total planning costs of $55 million. Prior to making a motion on this item, I ask the Corporate Secretary to note any commissioner recusals on this matter.
There are none.
Thank you. Do any of the commissioners have questions or comments on this item?
Just a real quick comment, Vice Chair. Terminal B, big news this week. Want to thank Jackie McCarthy and folks in aviation. This is putting a stake in the ground. Terminal B's live, and this is going to really be transformative in what's happening at Newark Airport. Great job. Looking forward to this thing unfold, and it's going to follow in the footsteps of LaGuardia and JFK and Terminal A.
And Terminal A.
That's right. I
Very
didn't forget
good.
Terminal A.
Okay.
Vice Chair, thank you.
I now request a motion on this item.
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. I request the corporate secretary to call the roll for voting on this item.
Chairman O'Toole?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Linford?
Yes.
Commissioner Bolwage?
Yes.
Commissioner Eve?
Yes.
Commissioner Fine?
Yes.
Commissioner Fisher?
Yes.
Commissioner Kelly?
Yes.
Commissioner McCabe?
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson?
Yes.
Commissioner Rosado?
Yes.
And Commissioner LaBarber?
LaBarber's a yes.
Yes, okay.
As the votes are in order, the item is approved, and I return it to our august chairman.
Thank you very much. There being no further business, we move to adjourn.
Move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We'll see everybody in 3
Aye.
weeks. Watch Rick Cotton's expression on that one. 3 weeks, we'll be back.
November 14th.
Yes, thank you very much. Have a safe trip home.
Thanks all.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. We will check. You guys can hear? All right. We will get started with the Q&A. Our first question is Ry Rivard with Politico.
Good afternoon. Two things. One, I noticed that the bridges and tunnels, or the bridges traffic was down a little bit. Do you have a sort of explanation for what's going on versus last year? And then second, in the bus terminal approval process, is the city asking for any modifications, and do you expect to make any to sort of the request? Thank you.
Well, the bridges and tunnels have essentially recovered to 2019 levels, and they're up a little, down a little. It depends on the weather, depends upon number of days in the month. So from our point of view, those are modest changes. Fundamentally, they're back to the 2019 pre-COVID levels. I'm sorry, and then your second... Oh. Well, so this is a process. It's a well-established process. I would give the city enormous credit for moving the process along at a very rapid pace. We've been at this for multiple years, and if you look at our engagement with the city, with the community boards, over the past, just trying to think about the years here, there have been multiple iterations in terms of our proposal for the bus terminal. We started the environmental impact process on sort of the current round in 2018 or 2019, and we published a very specific proposal to build in place the bus terminal. And what happened was, as part of the environmental, what was called the pre-scoping period of the bus terminal, we got multiple suggestions from multiple sources. And we responded very, very positively. And where the current project description was published at roughly January of 2021. And we have been, since then, in constant communication with the City Planning Commission staff. It has been a very consultative process. And the city gave us, in the course of that, many, many suggestions, many of which were incorporated. And in fact, I think this project is unprecedented in having the support of every single elected official in whose district the bus terminal project is. So our dialogue with the city has been over multiple years. We have gotten a lot of feedback from the city. We've gotten a lot of feedback from the community boards. At this point, I'm not aware of any pending request from the city. But the Euler process still has a ways to run. There may be further requests, but at this point, we're looking at the stage that we're at. The city council meeting, which will be the major approval that will come from the legislative side, the city council side, and then the mayor has a veto period. So that is where we are in the process. It is very, very far along. It has moved very fast. There can easily be dialogue at this final stage of the proposal. I'm not aware of any formal requests from the city itself at this point.
Tom?
No virtual questions. That concludes the Q&A. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much.